I'm going to share a story with you this morning that Emmett Fox retells. And it's about the story of a man who became a prisoner for something that really angered the king in his country. This man was arrested and shut up in a dungeon beneath the castle. And so this really mean-looking jailer carried one of those really long keys with him as he was escorting this prisoner down this dark stairway. He got down there and he opened the cell door, and then he kind of tossed that man in that cell. And then that door shut with an incredible bang. And there he was. He laid in that dungeon for 20 years. And each day, the jailer would come. He would open the door with that creaking sound, and he would leave a pitcher of water and a loaf of bread. And then he would close that door once again. So after 20 years, the prisoner thought, I've had enough. I just want to die. So he decided the next day that when the jailer came, that he would attack him. Because if he attacked him, then in self-defense, the jailer would kill him and it would be over. So he was beginning to prepare for the next day and how he was going to do this. So he went over and decided to examine the jail door pretty thoroughly. And when he went over to the door, he grabbed onto the handle and he turned it, and guess what? It was open. It was never locked. There had never been a lock on that door. For those 20 years, he had not been locked in physically, only in his own mind, only in his own belief. At any time during that 20-year period, he could have opened that door and been free. So, the man walked out the door, slowly and carefully walked down the corridor, felt his way up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs there were two soldiers, and they were just talking. They didn't make any attempt to stop him. They just let him walk on. Then he crossed the yard without anybody even noticing or caring. There's an armed guard at the drawbridge at the gate. He paid no attention to him. And so he walked out a free man and went home. He realized at that moment that he could have left there any time during that 20-year period. He was a captive, not of the stone, not of that iron, certainly not of the jail. He was a captive of his own false belief. He wasn't locked in. He was imprisoned up here. Now, to some extent, we've all been prisoners in one way or another of our own mind, of our own belief system. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's resentment, maybe it's remorse, or the belief that there are no other options for us in our life. That we're locked into doing and being what we're doing and who we are. In reality, the prison is only in our mind, and the key to our release is simply the desire to be freed and the courage to take action. All we need to do is be freed from our limiting thoughts, and that's all up here. All of it. We create those boundaries for ourselves. In a lot of instances, we're allowing those boundaries unconsciously to define us, to tell us who we are not. And here's what I know. We can use that concept in a very positive way. We can create in our lives and in the world what it is we wish to experience, what we wish to be, what we wish to think, how we wish to behave, all of those things. Why keep ourselves limited with so many things? Why do we do that? That is certainly not how we were meant to live our lives. Quite the opposite, right? We talk about that all the time, that we're free to be, do, and have. And relative to the whole scheme of things, I just want you to think about this for a second. Relative to the whole scheme of things, our lifespan can be compared to lighting a candle and then in mere moments blowing it out. Life is short. And missing out on any of life's joys seems not only unfortunate, it seems unnecessary. Because we all have access to all of it. And when we allow our life to be controlled, say, by fear or someone else's belief system or idea of who we should be or how we should behave, we're really cheating ourselves. We're cheating ourselves out of life's simple joys and life's great joys. Courage is what it takes to step beyond our perceived boundaries, our perceived limitations. And it takes courage to move beyond those. The more you step up with that courage, the stronger you become. The more apt you are to do it again and again and again and create that new habit. Because it becomes easier to step up to that courage, to step outside of our preconditioned thoughts or ideas, our behaviors, and let go of that autopilot that we tend to do. Courage isn't something necessarily, I don't believe, that we're born with. I think it's something that we develop through practice. And if we don't develop that courage, we keep ourselves in that limited state of mind, and we get stuck in the same old, same old. Kind of like, what's the movie? Groundhog Day, right? Day after day, it's the same thing until we learn, until we get it, until we understand. It's been said that if you face the thing you fear, that fear will leave you. I really believe that, because fear is only up here. Nelson Mandela is only one example of having courage in the face of fear. That courage and fear that allows you to be set free. The man was imprisoned for 27 years. Not like my story, this one was for real. And he did not allow his captors to strip him of his true essence, of who he was. They say that not only did he survive that ordeal, he thrived in that environment. And he thrived by nurturing his spirit, by recognizing, this is who I am. I was reading an article about him, and they were saying that once he had been incarcerated, he wasn't concerned at all about trying to escape. That wasn't even a thought in his mind. What he did want was to create community, to create relationships. And it was by having a cause that kept him out of self-pity. And we talk about that a lot here. By being in service, we get outside of ourselves, right? For nearly 3 decades, Mandela was master of his own prison. There weren't enough bars and walls to contain his spirit. It is so essential for us to learn to move through those obstacles that are in front of us. Not get over them, not go around them. We want to move through them and learn to do that with grace, with ease, with gratitude, knowing that there's something on the other side of it for us. I say, between the song and the meditation, a reminder, live out loud. Be who you are. Don't be who you are with apology. There's very likely something in your life that you've always wanted to do. I mean, think about that. One thing that you've always wanted to do. Maybe it's move. Maybe it's start your own business. Maybe it's singing, learning to sing, or playing an instrument. Maybe it's making jewelry or glass, or writing a book that you get published. Whatever it is, do it. Have the courage to step up and actually do it. Life is not a practice run. This is it. This is it. And a little courage goes a heck of a long way. It leads to more of everything. You don't want to be the person that is tiptoeing through life hoping to make it easily to your death, right? We weren't meant to live that way. Not any of us. Bob Proctor reminds us to live the way you like by no longer living as you dislike. Now, very simple statement, but how profound is that? How many times do we complain about where we are, what we're doing, and what's going on in our life? Change it. Step up. Have a little courage. Move past that fear. Courage is an indispensable commodity, and we all possess it. We all have it within us. We tend to lose sight of the power and the importance of that courage to help us move through during challenging times of change and transformation. And I'm not talking solely about physical courage of a daredevil or a boxer or a soldier or somebody who goes out and risks their own life to save somebody else's. Those are all amazing, courageous things. I, however, am including the extraordinary, heroic courage demanded of each of us every single day to grow and stretch ourselves. Because we are all called to do that every single day. And here's the deal. How will we ever know our limits unless we test them? And testing our limits does take an incredible amount of courage. And just because we may lack experience in a particular area doesn't mean that we don't have talent. Sometimes we base our abilities on a single experience or a limited exposure to something, and we're afraid to pursue it. Our self-concept, maybe because of a single incident, could be very skewed about our own personal abilities. I know when I was in grade school, I was told how poor my artistic abilities were. And I believed it. Now, if you've spent any time with me or been in a class or anything, I'm the first one to tell you that I'm a heck of a stick person drawer. And I'm not very good at it though. All right, let's just be honest. I've stayed completely away from art and drawing of any kind all my adult life. Well, since I was pretty young. And it wasn't because I was told I wasn't good. It was because I believed I wasn't any good. I bought into someone else's belief system. And I didn't, at that point in my life, have the courage to step away from that, to move beyond that. I still can't draw. That's something I spent a lot of time on. Courage is necessary in nearly every single basic human activity that we encounter. For instance, to allow ourselves to commit and love another person does take immense courage, doesn't it? Separating from our parents and creating an independent life for ourselves, that took a lot of courage. To survive an abusive, traumatic, or neglected childhood or adulthood and be able to step out of that within a sense of dignity demonstrates tremendous courage. Aging, as I'm finding out, takes a lot of courage as well. Things shift and change, and we don't always like it. And yet, we need to move forward. It takes a lot of courage to authentically be yourself in the world, to dare to be yourself and to live out loud. It takes courage to expose that innermost self to others, to be vulnerable and open. Pursuing your dreams, that takes a lot of courage. It takes tremendous courage. And you all have that courage within you. Our good friend, unknown author, says this: courage, I love this, courage is looking fear right in the eye and saying, get the hell out of my way, I've got things to do. Right? And sometimes we just need to be that strong. Spiritual courage is what motivates us to do the right thing, to right a wrong, to take a stand for a closely held belief or a principle despite the personal price, despite public opinion. Who cares what other people think? This is who I am, this is how I feel, and this is how I see the world. That takes a lot of courage. Show up here on Sunday morning and tell anyone takes courage, right? Because a lot of people think, whatever. This kind of courage, however, was exemplified by Jesus, by Mahatma Gandhi, by Martin Luther King Jr., and their commitment to passive, non-violent resistance. So you're in really good company by being spiritually courageous. They all stood up for what they truly believed, and that took courage. And that's what allows us to acknowledge our humanness, our weaknesses, our fears, and accept those human characteristics, because we all have them, instead of hiding behind a facade. It can be courageous and encouraging to act, to own up to our own vulnerability, to our own sensitivity, to our own anxiety. We need courage to encounter what's on our path, to conquer that despair, to move through those inevitable obstacles that will be in your way, and to fearlessly discover and fulfill our deepest desires. And isn't that the truth? That we want that? When Beethoven discovered that he was losing his hearing at the age of 28, he was incredibly depressed. Serious despair. Incredible rage. He was not a happy camper. However, eventually, that anger gave him the courage he needed to encounter the reality of what was in the moment. And then he went on, once he was able to do that and that move into that acceptance space, right? He went on to fulfill his musical career. Despite being totally deaf, he composed his most beautiful music up until the time that he died at 57. So you see, that fear and that anger can move us into that place of courage if we allow it to, if we're open to it. It gives my soul courage to know the impossible is achievable. And I need neither to be the strongest nor the wisest. I need only to be the best I can be, which is a beautiful poem written by Unknown. That's all that life asks of you, is to be the best you can be. And you know, that changes day to day, doesn't it? And that's okay. Courage is absolutely a choice. It's a choice to stand and to face what's in front of us rather than to turn away. A choice to tolerate instead of attack or withdraw. To persevere rather than to quit. To act with integrity, to act with responsibility, to embrace reality rather than resist it and retreat from it, to move forward in life rather than to regress or stay stagnant. It takes courage to create rather than to destroy, and to love rather than to hate. So I invite you to be courageous this week. Try something new. Act as if there are no limitations whatsoever to your abilities. Open your heart to everyone, including strangers. And know that whatever obstacle you face, you will, at a minimum, learn and grow from and through it. And if you're feeling really courageous this week, be vulnerable. Look someone in the eye that maybe you've offended, whether it was intentional or unintentionally, and just simply say, I'm sorry. You'll be amazed at the freedom that courage has to offer. So I leave you this morning with this question. What courageous act are you going to take this week to live the freedom that you desire? And I want to say thank you for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.